My name is John Haas. I'm going to talk about Monero mining and what it is. So it's an open source cryptocurrency created April 2014. It's focused on privacy and decentralization, and it uses the CryptoNote protocol. It became popular when one of the darknet drug buying, gun buying websites picked it up in 2016. It uses ring signatures to hide the original sender. That's part of the privacy, which I show right here. So A is paying Z, and you can see that it's actually going through other nodes, and then that's how the payment actually happens. So it's A is pretty much hidden from Z, so the rest of the network doesn't know who actually originated the transaction. The mining is proof of work, just like Bitcoin, just like Litecoin. It's ASICs resistant. It requires at least 2 megs of L3 memory, which is CPU memory. Modern ASICs machines don't even have 1 megabyte on their processor. You can GPU mine it, but from my experience, the cost of the GPUs versus the cost of the CPUs, the payback's quicker with the CPUs. So when I decided to build one, I wanted to try to find as much L3 cache for the processor that I could possibly have at a good price, because you can pay a lot for a CPU. You don't need any RAM, just basically to boot the OS. And I wanted the OS I didn't want the machine to have a hard disk, so if I put a bunch of these in, I wanted to make sure I could just push the button and the thing would just boot up and go. And I wanted to try to build it for less than $200. So I went to eBay, and I had to be patient. I found this blade chassis. The guy had a bunch of them, 20 of them. I only bought 2 of them. I wish I would have bought more. For $48. That was no CPUs, no memory, just exactly what you see there. The next thing was could I boot it without the blade chassis? Normally these have to have a big chassis. You slide the blade in. There's a back plane that actually boots the thing. So I found this one post on the internet, and it was pretty long. But this guy, Real Afterburn, says you can do it without all that stuff, but it's not easy. You can short pins to start it up. I used a momentary push button. You'll have to feed the board 5 volts, and you'll need special risers for the PCIe slots because the motherboard are not wired to the standard risers route with the proper pins. And then he writes at the bottom, P.S. I'm typing this message on a homebrew computer with a S2600JF board, which is exactly what this is. That was the only help I got. So I found the Intel technical specification guide, and I was able to pinpoint, what pin is it? It's like, I don't know. It's one of these pins that I could short to ground, and the thing would come on. But before I did that, I had to figure out which one of these pins, and you guys can come look at this board after the talk here. I had to figure out which one of these pins on the board had to be shorted to 5 volts. So I did a lot of ohm reading and everything else to try to actually figure out what I was doing. Here it is.
J2600 build out.
Basically sitting on my kitchen counter.
And I'm going to be powering it by this.
And I don't know if the sound.
So first thing I did was I took the PCIe power. Remember, it won't plug in exactly right, so I kind of had to force it positive to the top. If you're on.
And that is the secret here too, is the back pins on this board are made for a different kind of power. But it turns out that PCIe power, which you'd normally power a video card with, if you turn them backwards and you jam them in the slot, it works just fine. That's the riser card that runs between.
Really tricky one is right there.
And that's the 5 volt you got to short out.
Pin 36. It's on the even side, and it's the 5th pin.
So
on the
yeah, the red cable there. I had to basically stuck one little piece of wire in there to actually get it connection.
This wire anymore, so basically it boots up, and then it automatically turns on after about 25 seconds. But I'll show you how this works. I can get the power on right away. First thing is I turn this on. Notice the front lights come to life. Grab the other end of this. Wait till those lights quit blinking. And it should come on. Okay. And I touch the second connector.
And you hear it turns right on.
There's the lights. There's the screen. So, secret here, pin 36, number 1 on the IPMB connector, connected to 5 volts on here, which is the red connector, and then I have the green and black grounded so the thing always comes on. Next I'll show you with the actual 12 volt adapter.
So what all was exactly on that board then, Scott? You had to put CPUs in it?
Yeah, but I had to put CPUs in it and the fans. I'll get to that here in the next couple slides. I had struggled here with the slideshow.
Normally there'd be big fans back here that blow across. I pulled.
So the next thing is what other accessories did I need to actually make this thing work? So I ran it for a little while on the non-fanned coolers, and that got way too hot. So I needed a fan. So these are the cheapest fans I could find on eBay that were the correct slot or the correct socket. Then I found 2 of these. These are the first generation 2648s. So these have 12 megabytes of cache. And then I found 4 1 gig RAM for 35 bucks. And then this unit here, I use to power them at home. So that's a standard HP power supply, and it's got a connector on it, and it breaks it out into PCIe connectors. Normally you would use those to plug those into video cards, but like I say, if you turn them backwards and jam it in the slot, it works just fine. And this I can power more than one. I calculate I can power 4 of these blades off of that one. So the cost of that is divided by 4. So the total cost I ended up on this first one, I was close, $236.08. So the next was I had to figure out I wanted to be able to boot the OS. I wanted it to be Pixie boot, and I wanted it to be simple. So I knew I wanted it to be Debian based, Pixie boot, and I wanted to use XMR Stack for the mining software. So demo. I'm not Pixie booting this one. I'm going to run it in KVM. So I boot it up, and the OS boots up. And then in a screen session, XMR Stack is running. I don't have the network card configured for this, but I mean it's basically after 60 seconds, it goes and downloads a config file, and then it starts mining. And that's my last slide, but I'll show you guys a couple more things. So here is the XMR pool I use. Right now I have 1680 hash because I have one video card running, and I pulled this today, so that's not working now. So normally I have quite a bit more. This unit here keeps crashing because I'm trying to overclock. So total cost of ownership, so $236. It's about a 4-month payback if difficulty doesn't increase. So this is a video card. This is a Radeon Vega RX 64. This will hash at 2,000 hashes. This machine I'm showing here hashes at right around 600 hashes. The other one I got at home, I bought some 2648 V2 chips, and those hashes at right around 1,200, and that cost me about 350 bucks. So this card takes a lot longer to pay off at $1,000 currently, if you can find them. Let's see what else. Oh, a couple of things. So I don't know if you guys knew this, so this is a standard computer power supply. If you short circuit the green and the black, that forces the machine to come on. So I always use these for testing. And then I have like that fancier power supply. But the green to the black, and then the reds are always 5 volt. And then the other thing I used was, this is called a buck converter. And so I took 12 volts off the power supply at home, and this will take up to, I think it's up to 28 volts, and it'll convert it to 5 volts. So this machine actually has a USB that powers that little connector that needs the 5 volts to the ground to actually power the blade on. And then basically you just turn it on, and after 25 seconds, the machine boots up and goes. It's right here. You're not going to see it on the screen, but the machine boots up and goes after 25 seconds. So, well, so why do I think XMR is the next big currency? One, so in that's probably bad to say, but in the video VHS versus beta and HD DVD versus Blu-ray, the adult industry generally tends to decide which format is the best. So they pick VHS, they pick Blu-ray, and that's what gets it. I believe that the people on the dark web are probably the people that are deciding what the next best currency are going to be, because they're the early, they'll accept things early. Anonymity is huge in XMR, Monero, so I think that that's big, because they've proven now that you can follow Bitcoin back to the source and find out who it is. Monero, you can't. So that's pretty much my talk on Monero, but feel free to ask questions.
Why Monero over Zcash?
So Zcash is good. I don't have any complaints about Zcash. The only thing is you can build Monero on cheaper machines versus Zcash, because you can GPU mine Zcash pretty good with GPUs. That's the only reason why I chose Monero over Zcash, but Zcash is another good one. Z Classic is a good one. We're actually mining Z Classic here right now on our GPU rigs. We're not doing that now. We were up until
About 2 hours ago.
So what do you, all right, so you have the hardware, what else do you need to get started?
just so I use XMR Stack, really solid mining software. It has like this backend interface and all that for monitoring. If you're using Windows, XM Rig is another good one. If you're using this Radeon card, you would use Cast XMR, which is this. Now, the thing you have to remember when you download things like Cast XMR, you don't get to compile it from source, and you automatically have to pay some of your hashing rate to them. So it'll switch and mine their pool for a little while. It's like up to 1 or 2% or something like that. But with this card, we can hash 2,048 is about the max I've had them at. XMR on one card. They get really hot, but it works. So, that's it. And then I had the Pixie booting Debian image that I used to boot it. So
Like when I looked at it a little bit, it was saying first figure out what pool you wanted to join.
Yep.
And so what are the pools about?
I use Nanopool. It seems pretty solid. I used a different one, and then they went dark. That's always your risk, because Nanopool, you only get paid at 0.3 XMR. So you got to leave your money in there for a while. If the pool goes dark, then you're going to lose your money. So I can't recommend anything other than Nanopool. The other thing I'll tell you, as far as the wallets go, don't trust anyone with Monero, because the same reason that I think it's going to be an accepted coin, I think there's a lot of bad actors in the coin. So you're going to want the Monero wallet.
Does Trezor support that?
No. There's one that I've seen that's in the works for a hardware wallet.
Unless it doesn't use
Nothing supports it, and I don't know the reason, but this is a graphical interface for your machine. So let's see if I can get into mine at home once.
So you download that, and then there's like a wizard that would say create wallet. And
Yeah, it's all right there. Basically, the first time you open it, you'll have it.
And then what do you, is it just like a key or something that you put in to your hashing machines then?
Yeah. So yeah. How do I mine here? Let me get the. So this will be, if it comes down. Yep. So this is an XMR stack config file. it pretty much writes this for you, but this is the only part I had to do. So the pool address, this is where you connect to actually start your mining. And then this is your wallet address. And then the one thing that you can do here is you set a name. So I did John as the name. And then you set an email address. That's how you can actually control your payouts and things like that. Pool password is X. We don't want to use the extra knots, which is nice hash. We don't use TLS, and it's good to go. It does automatically generate a CPU file that basically maxes your processor out. So if you don't want to do that, you generate the CPU file and make it be less intense, because it'll peg your CPU at 100%. You'll be totally full.
So, and with CPU mining, I would guess that the power requirements are a lot less.
Well, yeah, so this machine here, so this card itself pulls 280 watts at full blown capacity. This here we're about 150 watts. So yeah, quite a bit less power on one of these. That's another reason that, I mean, the fans are just killers on these things. They just burn up power. Any other?
I apologize if you talked about this already, but what are your views on XMR mining over Windows or through a virtual machine?
So, okay, so Windows, I mean, you could do it. I mean, with the Radeon cards, we have to, because the AMD has a blockchain driver, so we have to use it. It's super unstable, crashes all the time. So if you overclock and you're just a little short on power, freezes the whole machine. But unfortunately, you have to. With CPU mining, if you start KVM, see how I have, here, let me highlight it. CPU equals CPU host. That actually passes the physical CPU to the VM. So what's cool about that is if you wanted to only pass a couple of CPUs to the machine, you could. So then you could have 2 or 3 CPUs maxed out all the time if you wanted, but then your OS will still have plenty of CPU left. So I'll show you. So you can see it's got Intel Core i7. This is my machine processor, even though I'm in the VM. But it only has one, where this one has 8 processors total. So, but it's the same processor. And what's most important too on XMR is that your CPU supports AES. It uses AES to do the calculations. So if you don't have AES on your CPU, you might as well just forget it. So don't mine Monero.
Any other questions? Thanks, John.
Yep.